Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Friday, and how appropriate is this as we make our way up there. All of our guests today are brought to you by the Whistler Golf Club. Tomorrow.
Oh, beautiful.
Going up tonight, actually.
It's going to be nice.
Okay, Jonathan Lekkerimaki, looks like he's headed to the Swedish First Division.
Orbro.
There you go. So there's that. Canucks training camp, we found out yesterday, in 2023 will be held in September in Victoria for the first time since 2019. They've been there multiple times, but the first time since 2019. Here to talk about that and all matters Canuck from the Athletic, Thomas Drance. How are you, sir? Oh, looking good. Looking good.
I'm doing well, boys. How are you guys?
I'm telling you, I'm jealous is how I am.
Yeah.
Summer Drance activated. Oh, yeah. It's like 40 degrees here. I already got my morning hike in with the dog. I had to be out at like 6 a.m. just to make sure that he didn't overheat. It's nice down in California, but you guys are in for a scorcher this weekend.
Yes,
so
we are. Yeah.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the sunshine.
Wow.
I'd imagine even though you're on vacation, although you're never on vacation, you're always working no matter where you are. I'd imagine you've caught the latest Canucks ad campaign. Structure, habits, standard. Are you okay with all of that, what they focused on?
I am. I just don't think any of those things are like goals, right? It's like asking, It's like asking me what I hope to accomplish in this hit. And it's like, I'd like to speak English, be basically competent, and wear a shirt with lemons on it. You know, I mean, that's a minimum requirement. That's not a goal. That's not like being insightful or like providing value to your audience or continuing to get paid by you guys. Like, those are goals. Structure, habits, standards. Like, come on, that's minimum requirement stuff. You know, it's tough, I think, to sell a vision of like cold incremental professionalism when this organization hasn't proven that they can do that, right? And moreover, when in terms of how they've handled themselves, in terms of how they've approached building this team, you know, it's not like we're going through a slow cook here, right? It's not like we're going building block by building block and trying to be part of the journey. This team's still intent on microwaving a contender. And I don't know, like, it's hard to sell a cold vision of, a professional, process-driven organization when, like, you can't even hold summer workouts without getting fined, right? You can't even fire your coach without it being national news. Like, show us you can get the small stuff right first and then sell it.
You're getting paid for these hits? I had no idea. Hey, how important is it? How important is it that Jonathan Lekkerimaki moves up a notch, moves up a level over in Sweden?
Well, he was up a level in his draft year, right? Like, he's played in the SHL before and had success.
Right. Yep.
But I think it's good in that he needs to do really well. Like, he had a really strong conclusion to the season. And I want to be clear before I start here that I'm not critical of the Canucks for picking him. I liked the pick, especially based on what he did in his 17-year-old season, in his draft-eligible campaign. But he really took a step back this year. And there's a lot of context for why. And the season did end with a strong performance in the playoffs. But there are, a ton of reasons to be deeply concerned with the year that he put together, like to the point where I was a little bit surprised, not overwhelmingly surprised, but a little bit surprised that the club decided to sign him to an entry-level deal when they did, given that, if he didn't get back on track next season, there was a path to get a compensatory second-round pick in a couple years. I thought the club might want to manage their risk there. They didn't. They signed him to an ELC, obviously, last week, and fair enough. You sign your first overall pick. It makes sense. It's just that it's not a completely risk-free decision by the club, given the way that he tracked in his draft plus one season. Fact is that like scoring wingers who produce the way that he did as 18-year-old players in the Allsvenskan, they don't tend to make the NHL. Like, they don't tend to be impact NHL players. You know, he had the mono thing, the concussion thing, the lower body injury late in the year. I think we can cut him slack. He's still an enormously talented prospect. I'm not low on him so much as, you know, I do think the stakes are high for him in his draft plus 2 year next season to show that he's able to get back on track and still be looking like or tracking like you'd expect from an NHL prospect.
Thomas, yesterday or day before we found out the Canucks are in a whole lot of cap problems.
What do you mean? We found out yesterday?
Well, yeah, listen to me.
We've known since the Hronek trade that this was coming.
Okay, will you let me ask the question before you start attacking me? Okay, listen, who's to blame?
Ask a good question.
No, but who's to blame more? Our poll question yesterday, Alvin or Benning? Benning's got the three bad ones, OEL, Myers, and Garland. But this regime has added $22 million in the last year and a half as well, Thomas. Where does the fault lie?
Yeah, I mean, both. You know, Garland, I don't think deserves to be lumped in with Myers and OEL, first of all.
Why?
Right? I mean, huh?
Why? They've been trying to get rid of him since day one, Thomas.
Well, because he's at least a credible middle six guy. Like, you know, if Garland's a free agent, he probably makes at least $3 million. So he's overpaid, but it's only by a couple mil. You know, Myers and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, those are different caliber of inefficient contracts. Like, those guys are both paid in the top 30 for NHL defensemen. Like, they're not paid to be top pair guys. They're paid to be number 1D in terms of their cap costs. And, you know, at least this past season, they were like negative wins above replacement by just about any metric you look at. So they're a totally different world than Garland, in my view. Garland's still not a great deal, but I mean, how much less efficient is the Garland contract than the Brock Besser contract, which this management group signed, right? I mean, the only issue is that Garland's a little bit smaller and 1 year longer, but he had 31 5-on-5 points. Like, I mean, he had basically the same level of 5-on-5 production as JT Miller. He doesn't play power play one. You know, he works. He's a good player. He's just maybe not a fit on a team that's already a little undersized and needs more than the wings. No, fundamentally, this management group inherited a bunch of bad money and a poorly constructed team from Jim Benning. That part is undeniable, okay? So there is some fault that lies with Jim Benning, but they've made their own choices since. They extended JT Miller. They went out and signed Ilya Mikheyev, right? You might like both players, but they're still making choices in terms of how to allocate their money, right? They decided to do that compromise 3-year contract with Brock Besser. They inherited a tough situation, a tough negotiation because of the structure of his second contract. But nonetheless, that was their call, their decision. They're deciding how to spend their budget, right? You then go into this deadline and they take money back for Bo Horvat, a trade that was well out of step with how the rest of the market unfolded as we got to the trade deadline. And they bought Filip Hronek, for futures, sending no money out in the deal, and did so from 27th in the NHL in point percentage on the day they completed that trade. By the time you do all of that, like, you've made your own decisions. You know, it's one thing to say, like, they were a little bit limited in what they could achieve because they inherited a tough situation. And I would say, yes, that's fair. But once you're handed $1,000, it's yours to budget. You know what I mean? Like, this club knew what their budget should be. They talked about not wanting to be a cap team that was out of the playoff picture. And then they've gone out and made their own decisions. They've bought their groceries and on. And at the end of the month, they can't afford to pay the electrical bill. Like, yeah, it's partly on the person who's given you too little, but it's also on you to budget what you get, right? They didn't inherit an ideal situation, but even given those constraints, they've done a really poor job being fiscally prudent within the tough situation that they inherited. And it's going to come at a cost this offseason, more than likely, whether it's in the form of buyouts, a trade we don't like on the day it's made. Like, there's going to be a bill that comes due here, and, you know, it's going to make this offseason awfully difficult for the club.
What's on tap the rest of the day for you?
I'm probably open a can or two in about an hour.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, I think we're gonna have burgers for dinner. We're gonna go out into Palm Desert this evening, so should be fun. I've got 4 friends down here right now, so we're having a nice time. They're here for the weekend, and then a couple more weeks in Cali. I'll do a couple more hits in this hat, gentlemen, and then I'll be back in town for June. Can't wait.
What could be better? Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
I'm sorry for calling your question bad, Rick. It's just that we knew that these cap problems were coming.
Just let me finish the question. You cut me off.
He's used to it.
Bud.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, guys. Have good habits. Bye.
You bet.
Shot at the Canucks.
Thomas Drance down there in California.